Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's hearing. Today we're going to hear evidence from members of the Metropolitan Police Service.
Good morning, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
Mr.
Yes, we are. My first witness today is Inspector Nicholas Thatcher. Can I please call Inspector Thatcher?
Good. Thank you.
I swear by Almighty God
I swear by Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much.
So,
Yes, Mr. Willits.
Mr. Chairman. Inspector, can you please give the inquiry your full name?
Inspector Nicholas Thatcher.
Right. And can I start by saying to you, thank you very much for coming here today and assisting us with our investigations. We very much appreciate it. It may be difficult at times in your evidence to relive the events of the night of Grenfell Tower fire. And so if you need a break at any time, all you need to do is just indicate and we can take a break. We will plan to sit for no longer than an hour before we take a break at each time. But if, as I say, you need a break at any stage before that, just signal and we can stop.
Thank you.
Also, I should just say that when I'm asking you questions, it may be that I'm looking at the screen or looking at my notes, but I am at the same time also listening very keenly at what you're telling us. Now, you've done, I think, 3 witness statements in relation to this incident. I'm going to take you to them, first of all, and we're going to put them into the record formally. The first is dated the 27th of June 2017, and it's MET 000012582. Can I ask you to look at that? It'll be in a bundle in front of you, which I can see is open. Or also, it's on the monitor on the desk in front of you to your right.
Is it not?
Is it not on? Right.
No, you didn't know that.
Ah.
I would to know my daughter's not here. She does the technical things for me.
Well, we'll see if we can rectify that, because one of the things that can be done is to blow up the text to make it, or highlight the text to make it easy to read.
Exactly.
Shall we start using the written text?
Yes. I was going to suggest that we, for the time being,
We'll
Inspector,
get someone to come and see
we've
if
got
we
a
can
technical
sort that
glitch. For the time being, we will use the screens at the back of the room and your printed version in your file in front of you, if that's all right.
Certainly.
We'll fix the glitch as soon as we can, perhaps at the next break, and see how we go. If it becomes a problem, we'll stop. Now, your first statement, as I say, is dated the 22nd of June 2017. But if you could go, please, to the last page of that. It's page 12. Is that the last page of it?
That's right.
Okay. The second one is dated the 4th of July 2018, and that's MET 000018201. And that is an exhibit statement which exhibits your body-worn footage that was taken by you on your body-worn camera on the night. Is that your statement?
It is.
The third statement you did is dated the 8th of October 2018. If we can just have that, which is MET 000023284. 000023284. Is that the first page of your third statement?
It is.
And the fourth one that you did is dated the 16th of October 2018, which is an exhibit statement for photographs of maps, and it's exhibit NT1A, and that's MET 000023692.
Correct.
Is that your statement?
Yes.
It is. Have you read all of these statements recently, Inspector?
I have.
And can you confirm for us that the contents are true?
They are.
And have you discussed your evidence with anybody before coming here today to give your evidence?
No.
Thank you. Now, in terms of your exhibits, I just want to read into the record the references. We have, from the body-worn footage, INQ quintuple 0151 through to INQ quintuple 0165 inclusive. We have INQ quintuple 516 to 518 inclusive, and 520 to 525 inclusive, and 527 and 528. We also have two maps, which are NT1 and NT2. NT1 is MET, MET 000023282, and NT2 is MET, MET 000023283. Now, having got the formal part of putting your evidence into the record out of the way, can I start by asking you some questions about your position and training?
Sure.
Now, you say in your first statement that you have 23 years of experience as a police officer. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And so it's now, I think, 24 years or so, given the time that's elapsed since your first statement.
So,
And at the time of at the time of the fire, I think it's right that your rank within the Metropolitan Police was Assistant Inspector.
acting inspector.
Acting Inspector. Yes. And are you now a full Inspector?
I am.
And when did you...
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'd gone through the promotions process several weeks before Grenfell Tower, and then I got the results 3 weeks later.
And how long had you been an acting inspector by the time of the Grenfell Tower fire?
About 7 years.
Now, on the night of the Grenfell Tower fire, you were nominated to be a silver commander within the gold, silver, bronze structure.
That's correct.
Can you please explain for us, as briefly as you can, the role of a silver commander as at June 2017 within that structure?
The silver sits within the framework of bronze, silver and gold. Gold as the strategic overview and sets the what is to be achieved at whatever the incident might be. The silver is very much the how that's to be achieved, the nuts and bolts of making it happen. And then below them are the bronzes who have specific responsibilities within that, well, whatever the incident might be. And it could be a role, be firearms, or well, Sergeant Bajavi on this matter, he was in charge of parking, which is essentially making sure all the emergency services could get to the tower. But it could equally be a geographic area. So in Notting Hill Carnival, they have a bronze per area as it's divided into sections.
I see. So would it be right to summarise it that gold makes the ultimate decision, silver is responsible for putting that into operational effect, and the bronzes assist in specific areas of that operational effect?
That's right. And there are checks and balances within it. Gold will, as you say, retain overall responsibility and make sure that silver's actions are proportionate and reasonable in the circumstances.
Right. Now, in terms of training, and we'll come back to that structure later on, but in terms of training, you say in your first witness statement, and it's on page 1, that you are fully trained in the management of major incidents. This is 4 lines down from the start of the statement. What did that training consist of as at June 2017?
The previous July I attended, it's a bit wordy, the Joint Emergency Services Interoperability Programme, which is a desktop learning with all the emergency services about how to actually manage a major incident. It was attended by the fire brigade, it was run by the ambulance service, and there were members of local authorities there as well, where they would give you a structured, we do like an acronym, methane, which is a way to build the response to a major incident so that everyone understands what they're doing and what they're working towards.
Right. And was the underlying base document for that training the GESIP interoperability framework of July 16?
Yes.
Which I think we have, just for the record, at MET 000023290. We better just have that up so that I can link it to you and vice versa. MET 000023290. Is that the document?
Yes.
And was that available to you for the purposes of that training exercise?
It was sent to us afterwards, but the elements of the training were taken from that document.
I see, okay. Now, within that training, was there any training in the management of major incidents involving a large-scale fire?
Not a fire. They did use 2 case studies. One was the Croydon tram crash, which had happened shortly before this training was brought in, and one was a particularly nasty car crash on the M4 that involved some hazardous substances.
Right. Was any of that, it sounds as if that training did not involve a major incident in a densely populated urban area?
No.
Or a large-scale fire per se?
Not that I remember.
Let alone a high-rise block?
Definitely not.
No. As at June 2017, did you have any training in how to take and carry out the responsibilities of a silver commander?
The gold, silver and bronze structure is not rank specific. So I have done the the tactical role, but on a much smaller scale. I've been a public order trained officer since 1997, and I've done that role as constable, sergeant and inspector. So I've done the bronze role, but much, much smaller. And I've also worked as part of the management team, working directly to who would have been the silver at the time, at events such as the New Year's Eve celebrations and pre-planned operations like that.
I see. It sounds as if your experience in what I can loosely describe as crowd control were your own experience. When you were appointed on the night, were you appointed silver because of that experience, or because of some other factor?
It's an impossible question to answer. I would say yes, and it was my role. I was the inspector, it was my team first there. It's my responsibility.
Right, okay. That leads to this question. I'm assuming there are other inspectors in the Metropolitan Police in addition to you. Why were you selected silver?
I was the first senior officer there. I'd already started putting plans in place. Mr. Warnett, who's a detective superintendent, arrived very shortly after me. I know Mr. Warnett, he knows me, and he had confidence that I could do the job.
Going back to training briefly, did you ever have training in how the London Fire Brigade would communicate with and advise residents in a burning building?
In a burning building? No.
Right. Did you ever have training in relation to any of the policies adopted by LFB while at the incident ground?
No training, no.
Okay. Did you ever have any professional experience of interoperating, if I can use an expression, with the London Fire Brigade at a major fire?
Yes. Not a major fire, but the principles are very similar. I've gone into a couple of burning buildings myself, and I've attended fires as a sergeant and as an inspector. And I've been involved in talking to the lead fire officer and understanding what they need. But the scale is nowhere comparable to Grenfell Tower.
Did you ever have any training in or experience of what we call the stay put policy?
Training, no.
Experience?
Only in so much as I've been in many tall buildings and I've read the fire escape advice, so I knew it was in existence.
Right, okay. Did you ever take the role of silver commander at a major fire?
No.
Okay. And have you ever had any training in or experience of ensuring closeness of communication between the Metropolitan Police's control room and the London Fire Brigade's control room?
On a control room basis, no, but the need for a shared understanding and communication was a main part of the joint doctrine training.
Okay. And before July 2016, when you were trained about the joint doctrine that we've got on the screen there, did you ever have any other training about interoperability between emergency services?
The closest would have been working as part of the Chelsea Flower Show team, whereby the RHS planned things very, very thoroughly. And prior to any of the flower shows, they always have an emergency planning meeting. And it's, again, another tabletop scenario. And the fire brigade and the ambulance service and the police were there, and they would give us a scenario that it was, the last time was the main marquee catching fire.
Right.
That was very useful. But that was, I wouldn't say that was formal training. That was just luck.
Yes, thank you. Now, I want to turn, if I can, please, to the night of the fire. And I know that from reading your statements, you were involved in the incident for a long period of time, and you undertook a range of tasks in your role as Silver Commander. Now, I'm not going to ask you about every single aspect of that role, but I'm going to focus on a number of different particular areas that call for further examination. Okay? Now, can I start with notification of the incident leading to the declaration of a major incident with a capital M and a capital I, because that's a defined expression. You were first, I think, notified of the incident when the initial call for assistance came across the radio.
That's correct.
And you deal with that at page 2 of your statement. Do you remember approximately what time that was?
Shortly before 1 o'clock, I'd actually managed to get out of the police station. I was in the Chelsea area on my own. We had a problem at that time with youths using mopeds to commit crimes.
Right.
So I was in Chelsea, and the call came out to a 6-pump fire at Grenfell Tower.
Right. And did you know where Grenfell Tower was?
Yes.
It's on your ground, as it were.
Yes, I had previously been a neighbourhood, acting inspector and sergeant in Notting Hill, and our base was 100 yards from there.
Right. So you knew the streets and the layout of the building and the surrounding buildings.
Not as well as a constable, but I had a good understanding of them.
Yes. Now, if I can ask you to look at a document we're going to come back to many times during this morning. It's MET 000023294, which is CAD 482. And it runs for a number of pages. First of all, can I just ask you to identify for us what this is, Inspector?
This is a typed record of the call for assistance that would happen if anyone dials 999 and asks for the police. It will come into one of the control rooms, be answered by a call handler, who will decide how to categorise the particular incident. They then complete a predefined pro forma electronically, and they decide, is it going to be an emergency or a soon or a at some point call, and each one of those has a different response time. So an emergency, you have to be there within 15 minutes. This was an emergency call, so as a manager of a response team, myself and the sergeants are able to prioritise where we go first, quite frankly, and use our resources to the best effect.
And this is, what is this? It looks like a running log collected by a computer database. And we can turn the pages if you like. Perhaps we should look at page 2 to see where the actual time starts.
It's quite right, you can see here, sorry.
Yes.
If you can go back a page, please.
Oh, right. Go back to page 1, please.
This will dictate which division is involved. So normally this would, in Grenfell Tower, it would have been just BS, meaning Bravo Sierra, which is the 2-letter code that signifies Kensington and Chelsea. ASU is the air support unit, BS is ourselves, ARV are armed units, and it goes on to Kingston, Wandsworth, Hillingdon, Ealing, Harrow, everywhere.
Right, that's a very wide spread.
It needed a lot of people. Only the codes that are here, this would then get sent to the borough that is involved in being asked for any sort of resource.
Right.
So as you can see, all those boroughs were asked for resources.
And is that a summary of all the boroughs that were asked for resources throughout the incident, or those that were asked at the start of the incident?
This is linked to this particular CAV message. I believe there were others, and certainly on the night you can tell how far and wide resources are coming from the two letters that appear on. I don't have them, unfortunately. A is the centre of London. X is out in Hayes, Hillingdon. Z is down in Croydon. And on the night, we had the entire alphabet. They were all there.
Right.
If you keep going down and say, recorded, it's an emergency call, so it came on the 999 system. This is the location.
Yes.
To a major incident, although that wouldn't have been when that wasn't the call taker's decision. Lancaster at West Estate. A map reference. In the olden days, we all had these great big hardback book maps, and you actually had to have the map reference, and you'd sit there juggling it whilst your driver is telling you in no uncertain terms to find the exact location to go to. But the computer hasn't been updated. And then the process is what units are available at that time to go. So whilst all those divisions were involved at some point, or this message was sent to them,
yes.
When it first came in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In fact, their shoulder numbers, 10 people were available at the time.
And that's, that just so we have it on the transcript, you're pointing at the line under proposal. That's right. Which starts BS82N.
So 2 is the sector sergeant. 3, that's a carrier, so there would have been a unit of more than 2 constables, 1-to-1s, and the 3 numbers are individual officers.
Yes. And in that line, you can see, just by proposal, BOCU at 0119. First of all, what is BOCU?
Borough Operational Command Unit.
And 0119, is that the time of the first call in?
That would have been at the time that that the computer decided these officers were available.
Right, and then if you can turn to page 4 of this document, please. We can pick it up 2/3 of the way down the page where the title appears Guidance Relating to Incidents Involving Fire, and then under that 011900, 14th of June, CHS, entered by CHS, at 011834 on that date, 5-room flat on the 4th floor, 75% alight. First of all, CHS, is that the control room operator?
Yes.
Okay, where would they have got that information from? 5-room flat on the 4th floor, 75% alight at that time?
That would have been straight from the initial telephone call.
Right. And do you happen to know who made that call, whether it came from the LFB or a member of the public? Can you tell them? You can't tell from that?
No.
Okay. Now, you were told, you say in your statement on page 2, that it was that you were asked for assistance at a 6-pump fire. Do you remember who told you it was a 6-pump fire?
It was transmitted directly over the radio channel.
Do you remember who told you?
Whoever was controlling the channel that night. We don't have a very good first name basis relationship with the people running the channels.
Right. And do you know where that information originated from?
Would have been from this message.
Okay. Now, somebody would have told the control room to send that message that it was a 6-pump fire and Metropolitan Police assistance was needed. Do you know who that was?
I don't know, but if they've said 6-pump fire, I would guess that's from the fire brigade.
Right. Okay. You go on in your statement 4 lines down from the paragraph break on page 2 to mention 2 police constables, Sangar and Rees. Do you know whether they had any involvement in the notification to the control room which led to this initial message?
Not the initial message, no, but they were the first uniformed officers on scene.
Yes. Okay. Now you say on page 2 that it's not uncommon for the London Fire Brigade to request assistance at 6-pump fires. Is it a matter of policy that the Metropolitan Police is notified once there is a 6-pump fire?
I believe there's a threshold they have to work to, but I don't know what that is. I'm not trained in their policies.
Okay. And how would the Metropolitan Police normally be notified of a fire which you would customarily attend, you yourself?
Through the CAD system, as we
discussed.
discussed.
CAD system. And once notified of such an incident, what is the means, typically, by which the Metropolitan Police would be kept informed of the escalation or de-escalation of such an incident?
If we've got officers at the scene, then it will be direct from the officers that are there giving a situation report. If we haven't got anyone there as yet, then the fire brigade control room can communicate with the police control room.
And would you expect the London Fire Brigade to provide the police, once notified in this way, of the progress of the incident?
I've never been involved in anything like this before. The level that I've been involved in, you're talking a flat on fire above a shop, or a house on fire. So that particular question, it just doesn't happen.
Right. Okay. Let me try and get at it this way. Have you ever been involved in or had any training on what the police response should be in the case of an incident which goes from a 6-pump fire through higher numbers of pumps very quickly, 10, 15, 20, 25?
Only the jet loop training we discussed at the start of the 7s.
Okay.
Nothing specific.
And nothing specific. But within that training that you had, would you expect, was there a system by which LFB would provide the Metropolitan Police with an update, even if it's just we're now at 10 pumps, we're now at 15 pumps?
That would be through the CAD system.
That would be. Would you expect that to be the case? Would you expect that to be communicated?
I would.
And what would the point of contact at the Metropolitan Police be for those updates?
If it's going through the control room, then there's a senior officer that works up there who has responsibility to understand what's exactly happening all across London. That officer is primarily concerned with allocating resources, so he or she has to understand what's going on and what the threat is and where resources can be best used.
Would that person, to your knowledge, and I am asking you, not them, clearly, but would that person, to your knowledge, expect the London Fire Brigade to keep that control room updated as to the number of pumps at the scene and oncoming emergency traffic?
I would hope so. If it's going to significantly escalate and be much more demand on our resources, I would hope so. I can't say I'd expect, because I have no experience of it.
I understand. If you had been told shortly after 6 pumps that it was now, for example, a 10-pump fire or a 15-pump fire within a matter of minutes, what would that have indicated to you?
Things were significantly escalating, and we would need more resources.
And what kind of resources would you need?
People.
Yes, but what to do what?
Whenever there's a fire or a nasty car crash, which we tend to be the two things we'll be involved with the fire brigade with, it just draws people. It really is. It's unpleasant, but people come from far and wide. Social media makes things worse. The first thing you see is a bank of handheld telephones recording what's happening. So it's something like this, and it was a beacon. And the time of year, religious festivals, there are lots of people on the street. So yeah, you'd need to know as soon as possible so you can start getting cordons in place to keep the people safe and allow the fire brigade to do their jobs.
And that was the point of the policing.
That was the major concern at Grenfell Tower. Yes, was making sure that the people coming were safe, and that we could provide a safe working environment for our colleagues in the fire brigade and the ambulance service.
And does it follow from that you would need to know the speed and scale of escalation of pumps so that you could act timely with the right resourcing response?
Yes.
Now, when you learnt it was a 6-pump fire, where were you?
I was on the King's Road in Chelsea.
Were you in your vehicle?
I was.
Were you alone at the time?
I was.
Were you, clearly you had your radio. Is that an airwave radio?
It is, yes.
And what, well, I might ask you about the channel. You say on page 2 of your first witness statement that, we've discussed this briefly just this morning, that police constables Sangha and Rees were the first officers on the scene. And you say, a third of the way down the main paragraph on page 2 of your statement, you say, he began to relay a situation report. It's actually 6 lines down from the top of that page. But so PC Sangha quickly began to relay a situation report using his personal radio. Do you see that?
Yes.
He described that a flat on the 3rd floor was alight. It was unknown if there were people trapped. That evacuation of the building was required and that sections of the building were falling to the ground. Sorry, I would like that highlighted if I can. It starts really 4 lines down from the start of that chunk. PC Sangha quickly began to relay. Right. Now, it's 1 or 2 questions about that. First of all, are you sure it was the 3rd floor that he was describing?
That's what he said, I'm sure of that.
You've got a clear recollection of that?
Yes.
And you say that he said that the evacuation of the building was required. Do you have a clear recollection of him saying that?
Yeah. They weren't his exact words.
No. Now, can I just take you then to the messages that we see in CAD 482, if we can go back to that, which is MET 00023294 at page 5. At the top of the page, we see a time mark of 022328, 119 BS, other flats at risk of fire, going to be a massive evacuation. First of all, 119 BS, I think, is PC Sangha. Do you know?
Right.
That's right, is it? Yes. Now, he says going to be a massive evacuation, as we can see. Do you remember hearing him say that?
Well, yeah, I won't the exact words, but yes.
Okay. So was the message that you heard him say, which you recorded in your statement, the same message that we can see encapsulated at this time mark in the CAD here?
Yes.
Right. Now, did you respond to him?
In terms of?
Over your radio?
I would have acknowledged it. I can't remember what I exactly said to him, but as soon as PC Sangha said it was going to be a critical incident, that's when I used my blue lights and siren to make sure I would get there. At that point, I'd got as far as Holland Park Avenue. Okay. So it was quite close.
Right. We'll come back to critical incident in just a moment. Before I do, I just want to focus on this massive evacuation that PC Sangha thought was required. When he said that, what did you do with that information? Do you remember?
I understood that it was far more desperate situation than the usual 6-pump fires we get with the LFB, and that I needed to get there quickly to make an assessment.
Where did you think he was obtaining the information from that there was going to be a massive evacuation?
His own experience.
Right. And what was that experience? Did you know?
Well, he's a very competent and capable constable that I do trust. So if he says something is critical and we could do a big evacuation, then I believe him.
Right. So to be clear, that you thought at the time that it was his view rather than something he was told by the LFB?
Oh, definitely, yeah, it would have been his view.
Okay. Would you expect him to have been liaising with the incident commander at this stage?
In terms of, you have to put this into the context of the time. I think they'd only been there a matter of seconds. You do hear officers arriving at these scenes, they'll say on scene, or sometimes they'll say TOA, it means time of arrival, which is pertinent to the CAD operators. From memory, they'd only been there very, very briefly. Right. And as he'd only been there very, very briefly, then I wouldn't have expected him to have spoken to anyone of rank within the LFB. Right.
Okay. Do you know whether, from your own knowledge, because you say you trust PC Sangha, what experience or even training he's had in the evacuation of densely populated buildings in the event of a fire?
he wouldn't have had any formal training, it would have just been experience. There are a number of addresses in the Notting Hill area that we quite regularly had to evacuate people because of gas leaks, and it's mostly gas leaks, to be fair. So we've done it, but no formal training.
Right. Did you form a view at the time when he used the words massive evacuation that he meant the tower, which was on fire itself, or the surrounding buildings, or both?
I didn't have time to consider that.
Right. Do you know how the police would have assisted the LFB with any evacuation at that stage?
We'd have done exactly what we were told to do.
By?
The fire brigade.
Right. So you wouldn't have had any plan of your own?
Big one?
You wouldn't have had any plan of your own for evacuation?
If the fire brigade had said, can you deal with the evacuation, then we would have put a plan in place. If they'd said, we will deal with it, but you can assist with action A, B, C or D, we'd have done that. We've very much been led by the fire brigade.
I see. Now, did you, just staying with this page, page 5, just look halfway down it, please. You can see a time mark of 012605. MXB155, is there any CCTV? And consider linking with the council re-evacuation. First of all, what is MXB155?
I believe that's Mr. Warnett, who would have been the
yes,
the superintendent.
And did you action, or did anybody to your knowledge action this message in any way so as to link with the council in relation to evacuation?
Yes, I must admit I didn't hear him say that, but before I arrived at the tower, I'd already decided it would be a major incident, and I asked my colleague, I think it was Sergeant Blondell, who was in our local, it's not quite a control room, but it's a hub, to start making phone calls to the council to find a place to put the people.
Right, and did you monitor did you say Sergeant Blondell?
Yes.
Did you follow up, or did he follow up?
Throughout the night, yes.
Right.
But in terms of immediacy, there were more pressing matters to be concerned about.
Do you know from your own knowledge whether Sergeant Blondell got through to anyone at the council at that time?
I believe he did.
Okay. And what happened as a result, do you know?
It took a while to get anywhere open. Exactly the mechanics behind it, I don't know. The local authority have a duty officer who understands their procedures and their ability to respond to requests. It's a mobile telephone that links to a switchboard. The switchboard then calls their on-duty local authority member, and then they will work through their organisation to get what we need.
Do you know what time, roughly, or how long after this message, roughly, Sergeant Blondell got through to RBKC in relation to evacuation?
I'd be guessing. It wouldn't have taken long because it was, I say, just a phone call.
Did you follow that up with the LFB when you arrived on scene?
No, as I said, there were more pressing things than wondering if I could open a church hall.
Okay. Now, PC Sanger has provided a witness statement, and that's MET 0007837. I'll just read that into the record, but I will just tell you what he says on page 1. He says his intention was to make contact with the LFB incident commander and make an assessment of the scene in order to prioritise our role and save life and limb and assist the LFB with cordon and control of the scene. And he then goes on to say that he asked PC Rees to make contact with the LFB command unit. Arising from that, one or two questions. First of all, do you know whether PC Rees received any briefing from the incident commander?
I don't believe so. PC Rees will have provided a statement. When I arrived, PC Rees was within the building helping residents from the staircase.
Right. Do you know whether PC Sanger made any contact with the incident commander?
When I arrived, PC Sanger had already moved to the other side of the building. I didn't speak to PC Sanger probably till significantly on in the evening.
Did you receive any kind of handover from PC Rees or PC Sanger when you arrived?
No, I didn't see PC Sanger, but I did see PC Rees. I pulled him out of the building. It was chaotic. PC Rees was clearly under stress. He wanted to go back in and help people, So the best thing I did for him was getting out, get him a distance from there so he could settle himself. And the control unit we were talking about was just behind me, so I could go and do it myself.
Did PC Rees during that discussion tell you who the incident commander was?
No,
Did you ask him?
I don't believe I did, no. But as I say, it was just behind me, so it was a redundant question.
Right. Did you have any discussion with the incident commander at the time of your arrival?
Yes, I went into, I don't know what time, but one of the first things I did was to go into the command unit, and I spoke to the senior officer there and asked what they required of us.
Okay, we'll come back to that, because I do have some questions about that detail. But before we do, can I take you on in the CAD 482, please, to page 6, and ask you, please, to look at the time mark of 012939, BS1N to BS2N, to contact the local authority, as they will need to rehouse residents from this building. First of all, BS1N, is that you?
Yes.
And BS2N, who's that?
That's me calling a sergeant at the police station. That wasn't Sergeant Blondell, but Sergeant Blondell responded.
Right. Now, do you remember hearing that message?
That was me asking.
That was you asking him,
Yes,
was
from
it?
Bravo Sierra 1
to
to
the
Bravo
dots is a
Sierra
2, is it? Right, I see.
contact local authority.
Did you expect, well, what did you expect to be happening in relation to the evacuation of residents at this point?
I don't believe I'd arrived at this point.
Okay,
So it would have been make sure that telephone call was put in to the local authority duty officer.
right. When you did arrive, is this something you discussed with the LFB at all?
It wasn't one of the main priorities.
Okay. Now, was there any kind of discussion about evacuation of the residents from Grenfell at this stage, so at or before 012939?
No.
Just looking back a page to page 5 in the CAD, you can see that at 012632, I'm looking at page. I'm trying to look at page 5, but at 012632, you can see. I'm not sure we've got it quite on the screen actually. Let's start with 012621, which we do have on the screen. Just halfway down, where it says 119 BS. This is turning into a critical incident. Did you hear that message?
Yes.
Okay. And then a few minutes later, or seconds later, but 4/5 of the way down the page at 12636, just above it, BS1N, declared as critical incident. That's you.
Yeah, that's wrong though. It was major incident.
Right. So, just breaking that up, first of all, did you hear PC Sanger saying this is turning into a critical incident?
Yes.
Okay. Did that statement of his over the radio have any kind of status?
It made me realise, again, because PC Sanger is such a competent, capable constable, if he thinks it's a critical incident, then it's far more
Right.
dangerous than other six-pump fires. And so it does elevate the significance of what I was going to.
Yes. Now, you, I think, say in your statement, just correct me if I'm wrong, that actually any officer can declare a critical incident.
Yes.
Was this a declaration of a critical incident by PC Sanger?
I took it as it, yes.
Right. Now, lower down page 5, we can see, as you've just told us, you declaring a critical incident.
No. I declared at no time did I say this is a critical incident.
Right, then, sorry.
I went straight in at major.
So exactly, the document says declared as a critical incident. So is it right, just in summary, that at 012632 you declared a major incident?
Yes.
So we take the word critical in the record and change it to major, because that's a mistake. That's right.
That's correct.
Right. Now, why did you reach that decision and make that declaration?
You have to understand the difference between a critical and a major, really. A critical is any incident which, if handled wrongly, will affect the public's confidence in the police. So it can be anything. And there's no matter of scale. It's just if we don't do things absolutely perfectly, then it'll really affect how the public see us, which is, you know, a big concern as we police by consent. A major incident, on the other hand, again, it's any incident, but it requires a predefined response by any of the emergency services and typically involves the movement of large numbers of people. I was looking at a housing estate in the sky on fire. It seemed to fit the definition.
Now, just moving ahead a little bit to page 7 of this same document. Very near the bottom of that page, you can see, with stars either side of it, at 01:32:27, the document says major incident. Can you, first of all, explain why that appears at that point in the CAD, at about 6 minutes or so after you had declared a major incident?
I can't.
Who would be responsible for putting that into the system which generated this document?
That would have been the station, not station, the channel controller.
Right. Do you know, from your knowledge, of any intervening declaration or communication with the control room that produced these words here, major incident, that might have led to the control room putting major incident?
No.
Okay. So can we take it that although there's a gap of about 6 minutes between your declaration of a major incident at 1:26:32, 1:26:32 or 1:26:36, and 1:32:27, that is the major incident that you declared?
I believe so.
Right. Okay, now, can I take you back to your witness statement, page 2, please? First witness statement. And you explain at the bottom, or towards the bottom of the page, that you immediately transmitted to the control room that this was a major incident. And you say, 5 lines up from the bottom, I made the decision to call a major incident because it was immediately clear that all the blue light emergency services would be called to respond in special predefined ways relevant to their role, and the incident would involve a massive number of people. What could you see? We can see what you say in your statement, but what was it about what you could see which made you declare a major incident?
Mr. Warnett had already asked me, it's not recorded, I didn't see on the CAD, was I considering calling it as a major incident when I was on Holland Park Avenue. It's a massive step up to go from critical to major. I said I'd be there in a few seconds, so I'm just going to reserve my decision until I could actually see what's happening. I went up the little hill, if you're familiar, Glabbert Grove, past the police station, and started coming down the other side. And I have a memory of seeing the tower, and 3rd or 4th floor above my head. I saw the fire for the first time, and it was the intensity. It was like a jet engine coming out of this window and starting to go up the side and just moving around in straight lines. The other things I've been to, fire-wise, even ones that are on fire, you don't get that. You get, the windows haven't gone half the time, but when it has gone, you just get flame, you know, licking up the building. You don't get that. And it was just like nothing I'd ever seen. And the flame came out, went up the building. So yeah, it was a major incident.
Right. Just going back to what you said in the last answer about Superintendent Warnett's role, and you say in your statement, just below halfway down, that he contacted you. He was a senior officer. We can just have that highlighted. You say just there, the top of where we can see it on the screen, Detective Superintendent Warnett, who was the on-duty senior officer. You just have that highlighted. Contacted, and also the local superintendent contacted me via the PR asking if I was going to declare the fire a major incident. Do you know why he asked you that question?
Well, because I was the inspector, and whilst any officer can make the call, I've had the JESLIP training. I'm more experienced. It's my job.
Right. Well, first of all, where was Superintendent Warnett at that moment?
Absolutely no idea.
What did you think he could see or know that you couldn't see or knew?
Nothing, which is why I wasn't worried about telling my chief detective superintendent to wait, and I'll make my own mind up.
Do you know why he was thinking of a major incident?
Because it's a 6-pump fire in a block of flats, but he's approaching it from a career detective's point of view, not someone who spent over 20 years in emergency policing. This was my bread and butter.
I follow. Now you then go on to well, let me ask you this. You say on page 2, and we've covered this at the bottom, that it was clear that all the blue light emergency services would be called to respond. What did you want to achieve by declaring a major incident?
I wanted everything. I wanted police, I wanted ambulances, fire brigade were already there. I wanted everything. I made the call, and I'm so glad I did, but I could quite easily have been wrong. But I would far rather have made the call early, started things moving, and had the resources sent than not, because you can always say I'm wrong and I'll get told off, reprimanded later on. But what I was seeing, it was clear that I was going to have to get things moving quickly. It's important to understand just how big the organisations are we're talking about. Yeah, it's a big beast, the Metropolitan Police Service. And there's not much it can't do, but it takes time to wake up. It's a machine. You know, how many times you turned on your computer and wanted it to go quicker? It's like that. When it wakes up and it moves, it's a phenomenal engine, but it takes time, and the quicker you can turn it on, the better.
Did you know at that point, and when I say at that point, I mean at 01:26, when you declared a major incident, whether the LFB or any other emergency service had declared it a major incident?
No idea.
Did you have any expectation that the LFB or any other emergency service
I didn't give it a second thought.
You didn't give it a second thought. From your point of view, would it have assisted you if the LFB had already declared it a major incident, or at the same time made the same declaration?
Assisted me. We had different roles within the event. We had different roles to do. Would an extra few fire engines help me on the cordons? Probably not. Would it have made a difference overall? I don't know.
Right. Being a bit more specific, at that time, 1:26 or so, would it have helped you and your planning already to have received a methane message as a result of the LFB declaring a major incident?
Not really, when you consider what methane actually stands for. It's a major incident.
Yes.
The exact type, well, I can see a huge burning building. The elements were there in my eyes. I should also probably mention that it's a massive call to make. It took half a second.
Right. Right.
And many of the things going through the night, I will say again that we have structures, we have frameworks, we have ways of doing things that are put in place to help people make decisions. But when you're looking at something, and if you act, people might die. If you don't act, people will die. You have a clarity.
I'm just really trying to get a feel for why you were able to make that decision in 30 seconds.
Less than that, it's a snap second.
But the LFB didn't, as we know they didn't.
I've considered this myself because I've obviously followed this in the media. When you were a distance from the tower, you could see it in all its horror. When you were under it, you couldn't. It was a significantly different. Yeah, things were dropping on you, and you had to be a bit nimble, but you couldn't see. It was predatory, the fire. It was going up the side of the building in straight lines, and I've tried to describe it to people. If you're of a certain age, there was a science fiction film called Tron, and it involved some chap being chased on a bike, and his bike left a trail in straight lines. He could only make 90-degree turns. And that's what the fire was doing. And you could see it, and it was going up the building. And that, including the intensity from the point of origin, that was significantly different to standing underneath and the perspective of just looking up. So that probably played a part, but I'm guessing. And
this was at the top of the hill at Ladbroke Grove, but at the lights as you go north.
I have a memory of that. I can see it now. But I can't have seen it from there because I've been back and checked. So it was probably on Blenheim Crescent, I think, which is halfway down the hill, turn left. But we're talking about, I don't know, 500 metres.
And
sorry.
And you're looking at it from the southeast.
I'll take your word for that. I'll look at the front of my car.
Don't take I'm the last person you should take that from. But I think that is right. You could see.
I was heading north. It was to my left, so yes, it would have been.
How are we doing, Mr. Millett? Had nearly an hour.
We have. I'm just about to finish this line of questions, and I hope to do so within 2 minutes. Inspector, did you know that the JESIP Joint Doctrine and Operability Framework says that each responder agency should send a methane message to their control room as soon as possible?
No.
You didn't?
No. It wouldn't have made any difference either.
Right. When you declared, let me ask you this, when you declared a major incident at 126, did you ask for a methane message to be sent?
No, because as soon as you say the words major incident, that's when the machine wakes up, and that's when the control room comes into its own.
So you assume, do you, that the control room is going to send a methane message itself?
I would say I trust, not assume.
Okay. Thank you. That is convenient, Mr. Chairman. Yes.
Yes. We'll have a break now, Inspector.
So,
please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while they're out of the room.
Of course.
We'll resume at 11:10, and if you'd like to go with the usher, she'll look after you. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ten past 11, please. Thank you. All right, ready to carry on, Inspector?
So,
Good, thank you.
Inspector,
Yes,
thank you for coming back to us. Can I just go back over one or two things we covered before the break? If I can take you back, please, to page 5 of the CAD 482, which is MET 000-23294, and pick up the declaration of, as it says, critical incident just at, or just below the time mark of 012632. We can see that it's next to your call sign. Let me put this to you, first of all. PC Sanger, in his statement, has said that he declared a critical incident. Now, he was the one who did that. Can I just ask you really how firm your recollection is that you declared a critical incident at around this time?
at no time did I declare this a critical incident.
So you never declared a critical incident, in which case, as you told us before, the person writing this in the log, putting critical when they meant major, was a mistake. Is that right?
I believe so.
Would that be a very serious or grave mistake, given the differences between critical and major?
It would be less than helpful, but you'd have to also consider what they were actually doing. I've worked in a control room, and this operator would have been very used to typing the word critical. Critical incidents happen quite regularly. There's nothing to say that they didn't type critical and then start the major incident process. There would have had to been something that would have 6 minutes later make them realise I haven't added to the... Are you able to go back to the screen that had that the major incident pro forma at all?
Yes, which I think is page 1.
No. Next.
You say the pro forma.
Yeah, unfortunately doesn't look any different. With the CAD system, if you type in a particular code, a predefined amount of information fields appear on the screen. So there's one for a critical incident, and there's one for a major incident, there's one for a missing person, and anything that holds a lot of risk. And it's almost like a predefined risk assessment and things you can consider. So even though the CAD operator here has written critical, 6 minutes later, they have then added the pro forma for a major incident.
That's page 7. You want to see that?
Well, no.
I think it is. Well, let's take this slightly more slowly. Sticking with page 5 at the moment, you say you never declared a critical, you only declared a major.
Yes.
PC Sanger says in his statement that he did declare a critical incident. Given the importance of the difference that you've told us between critical and major, is it possible that in fact what this CAD is recording here is PC Sanger's declaration of a critical incident at 1:26:32?
So you'd rather confuse me, to be honest.
Well, I think what Mr. Millett's suggesting is that the attribution to you
I see. Yes.
is wrong,
So yeah, the attribution is BSN1.
or maybe wrong.
Could that be the mistake?
No. My voice is distinctive, and when you hear BS1 Knights or Charlie Whiskey 1 Knights, that means that's the duty officer. And when the duty officer speaks, you know it's the duty officer.
Right.
That's their job.
If it's attributed correctly to you, then the person who inputted the information into the CAD, putting it in as critical as opposed to major, made a mistake.
Yes.
And that's not a typographical mistake, is it?
No, it simply says critical.
Yeah, given the difference between critical and major, I'm suggesting to you that that is an important mistake for an operator like that to make.
Yes.
And then turning over the page, I just want to pursue this a little bit further, because PC Sanger says he did declare a critical incident. Do you recall hearing him declare a critical incident at any stage?
I heard him saying this was a critical incident, yes. And that's what made me more concerned, to the extent that I then illuminated my blue lights and used my siren to get there quickly.
Right. And would you expect we've seen him saying this is turning into a critical incident. Did you hear him say anything about a critical incident more than once?
No.
Right. And then going over to page 7, which I think what you referred to as the pro forma for a major incident. Let me just check with you. At 131.52, you can see it's 8 items of information there. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
As the pro forma? You can see at item 4 in there, exact nature of duty, TSG Commissioner's Reserve required to perform risk assessment must have been completed, major incident fire. What does that tell us about whether or not a major incident has been declared yet or is about to be declared?
Yeah, the colon would indicate this is a if we wind it back a tad. Sorry, I've been told off for not talking to the microphone.
Yes.
The exact nature of duty TSG Commissioner's Reserve. So exact duty means what are you asking them to do? This is a request for resources. TSG is the Territorial Support Group, which are a reserve of officers that can be available to assist their borough colleagues for anything. This is pre-populated. Everything after the colon is then typed in by the operator.
Right. I see. So the operator needed to know that this was a major incident before typing that in at item 4. Is
Yes.
that right? So, okay. And how would they know what to type in? How would they know that this was a major incident?
Well, because I told them earlier.
So they would be aware that you told them that. Would they go back over the log up to that point, back, say, to page 5, to look for whether it was to look for the moment when you declared it a major incident, or would they just carry it in their heads?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Right. Having declared a major incident, at latest by 01:32:27, let's take it as a common time mark, what steps did you take to ensure that the London Fire Brigade knew that the Metropolitan Police had declared a major incident?
I can't actually specifically remember saying to anyone that this is a major incident for us being the police. I don't remember saying that, but in the context of the night, it wouldn't have made any difference.
Well, you say I can't actually specifically remember saying to anyone that this is a major incident. I thought that you had said that at the message at 1:26.
Oh no, I mean on the ground. I'm talking face to face.
Right. Okay. Just then asking my question again. What steps, if any, did you take to tell the LFB, either by radio or on the ground, or asking somebody in your organisation to pass it on, that the Metropolitan Police had declared a major incident?
That would have been the controller's responsibility, because they would coordinate everything. That's their reason for being.
Right. Did you follow up with the control room or monitor the control room in any way in respect of them passing on to the LFB the fact that the Metropolitan Police had declared a major incident?
No. Once I'd said that, then the procedure should take over.
Right. And do you know whether there's a procedure within the control room whereby once an officer such as yourself has declared a major incident formally in the way we've seen, they would then take over and disseminate that information to the other emergency services?
I believe there is, but what it is, I couldn't tell you.
Right. Now, going forward then, can you confirm for us that you asked over your radio for RBKC to be told about the fire while you were en route?
Yes.
You did. And I think we can see a message in the CAD at page 6. And this is at 1:29, 1:29:39, just below halfway down the page. BSN 1, that's you. We've looked at this before this morning. This is you telling BSN 2 to contact the local authority. Is that a record of your message that you told us about in your statement?
Yes.
Okay. Now, just jumping ahead a little bit to page 11 in this document, in the CAD, if you go to the time mark of 2:10:02, 4/5 of the way down the page, you can see that there's a message, TWOP, K&C Council informed, there's a reference, Catherine Ascombe, they will be contacting their duty officer who will liaise with BSC direct. Council have set up a dedicated op named Erin for any further poll contact. First of all, what's TWOP?
I don't know.
Right. Do you know anything about this entry?
No.
Okay. Do you know whether it was about this time when RBKC were notified, or was it before that?
It's going to be, after I've made the request. TW does stand for Twickenham. OP is normally operated, so it could be that because of the increased demand for service from the control room, they've brought people across from the quieter channels. So it's possible that it was quiet night on Twickenham and they had their operator come across. Or they've shouted, it's an open plan room like this, they could have just shouted across the room, phoned this number, and then the TW operator has done that for them, and they've updated everybody else by typing on this message, because the little upmarker there means from. So this is from the TWOP, this is what I've done.
Right. Okay. Now, going back, if we can, to page 7 of the CAD, looking at the time mark of 01:33:05, you can see you send a message. This is BSN1, top 2 floors of building is on fire. That's your entry,
yes.
I assume, because it's got your call sign. And then over the page at 1:34:28, just above halfway down, you send another message. Entire side of the building is on fire, 20 floors. Do you see that?
Yep.
Just have that highlighted, 01:34:28. Entire side of the building is on fire, 20 floors. Where were you at that point? Do you remember?
I think I was underneath it.
Right. And what was the purpose of that message? Do you know?
And as you say, it was to try and get people to understand the speed of it.
Right.
It was just phenomenal.
So you were on scene at that stage. Now, given what PC Sanger was saying earlier about the need to evacuate the entire building that we've seen, and there are other messages as well to that effect, did you have any thoughts at this point about whether there should be a full or partial building evacuation?
On my arrival, I thought there would have been, but I'm not trained in that side of things. We have clear defined roles within it. Mm-hmm. My fire training as such is essentially which fire extinguisher to put out what kind of fire. And I can remember being asked by the control room quite early on, do I have enough ambulances there? And I can remember looking around and thinking, I've got too many, I should see more people. And that was a concern. But in terms of me going into the fire brigade and saying, you need to evacuate this building, they're the experts. Yeah, it was a concern, but they're the experts.
Did you have any discussions with anybody at the scene about evacuation?
No, because I say, you get there, what do you need from us? They tell us what they need, and then we provide them the safe working environment to do their jobs.
We've seen from the CAD, and we've identified already 1 or 2 instances of PC Sanger's view that the building was going to be evacuated. When you arrived, did you share that opinion?
I can't remember going there and focusing just on that point. Going there, as soon as I'd said it was a major incident, I was thinking what I would have to do. And I was thinking about the cordons, about getting more resources, about looking after the crime on the rest of Kent and Chelsea whilst we were doing, putting all that in place. I'd never thought I need to go and speak to the fire brigade and say, you need to evacuate this building. As the training was, you talk to them, you find out what they need, and you do your best to allow them to do their jobs. Much like if it had been a crime-orientated, say, one of the terrorist atrocities at the bridges that very same summer, there would have been a fire brigade version of me turning up to the police saying, what do you want me to do? They wouldn't turn around and say, you need to shoot that man.
Right. Going back to page 6 of the CAD at 128.37, you can see this is PC Sanger saying the building is 30 stories high, it's being evacuated now, we need off-borough units to assist, lots of burning masonry falling from the building. Now, first of all, do you know whether you were on scene by that stage? It looks unlikely given what we know where you were at 126, but you tell me.
I think I probably was.
Right.
I think I got there about 1:15.
Well, you told us earlier that you declared a major incident at 126 from your vantage
Okay,
point.
I'd just been arriving then.
Yeah, okay. Now, looking at that time entry, it says it is being evacuated now. That's what PC Sanger is recorded as having broadcast over his radio. Do you remember hearing that?
No.
Okay. You don't? Okay. When you arrived, did you expect the building to be evacuated consistently with this message, or to be in the process of being evacuated?
I don't know what I expected, to be honest. I didn't think we'd be leaving anybody in there, but whether that process was already underway didn't cross my mind.
Right. So you didn't think to yourself, well, I've heard a message about evacuation being underway.
I don't
and
remember
arriving
hearing that
and thinking,
message.
well, it's
I
not
might have
underway.
heard it, but I don't remember hearing that message.
Right, okay. All right. Now, you say on page 3 of your statement, and I won't take you to it for them just yet, you parked in Bowmore Road and took a moment to assess the situation. You remember it being Bowmore Road, I assume, because you're familiar with the area. What did you do to assess the situation?
Just take it all in, really. I had a deep breath. I'd already been considering things in my mind and the short time it took me to get there from making the call. Bowmore Road was a good vantage point. You could see the seat of the fire, you could see it tracking up the building, you could see the fire brigade, you could see an open space, and I just worked out what I needed and how I needed to prepare the ground for the ambulance service, who were obviously going to be needed, more fire engines, which were probably going to be needed, and just work out what was going to go where and start putting the jigsaw puzzle together. And then worrying about where PC Sanger and PC Rees were, because constables have an awful habit of running in.
Yeah. And you said before that you didn't get to meet with PC Sanger, but did speak to PC Rees.
Yes.
Now, Inspector Warnett says in his statement that he arrived on scene at about 1:45 a.m. Does that accord with your recollection?
He was there shortly after me.
Right. And he says that he met you and you discussed priorities, clear priorities.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Okay. And one of those priorities was getting the public a safe distance back from the tower and allowing the LFB a safe and large enough working area.
Yes.
That's right, is it? Okay. Did you know at that point, when you first started discussing matters with Superintendent Warnett, that you were going to be taking over Silver Command?
Not at that time, I don't believe, but the niceties of you're the gold commander, this is the silver commander, they really paled into insignificance. Yeah. He's my senior officer, I'm his junior officer, and I'm above everybody else. Right. It was just my immediate response team there. The putting the frame into place did come in. Sorry, I'm losing the power of speech. Mr. Warnett did put the gold, silver bronze framework in place relatively quickly after that.
Yeah.
But initially, it would have been silly to start talking about the niceties when we just needed to act.
Right. Okay. Now, do you know whether at that stage, when you first met in Superintendent Warnett, he had spoken to the incident commander?
I believe he had. He'd certainly spoken to LFB, but I had as well.
Who had you spoken to?
I can't remember his name. He identified himself as the senior officer for the LFB. He was in the command truck just on Grenfell Road, and he said my priorities at the time were the cordons for safe working environment, and he was concerned about identifying any fatalities.
Now, was this right on arrival, immediately after arrival, or
It was the first contact I had with LFB,
Yes, but was that on arrival?
within a couple of minutes.
Right. And where was that contact?
That was in the command truck.
In the command unit?
Yes.
Was that the one on Beaumont Road or the one nearer
No,
Grenfell
on
Tower?
Grenfell.
Grenfell Road. Right. And do you remember the name or rank of the officer you spoke to?
No, he was a tall chap with grey hair.
And how long was your discussion with him?
Very short, because his priorities were exactly as expected.
And do you know whether Superintendent Warnett spoke to him or whether he spoke to anybody else?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, on page 4 of your witness statement, your first witness statement, you describe various things, and a third of the way down, this is after you've arrived on the incident ground, a third of the way down, you say the LFB were clearly too busy to speak to me. At what point did you try to speak to them but couldn't make communication?
I think that was as close to immediate as possible when I went down to try and find where my constables were.
Right.
There was lots of coming and going from the command truck, and I was going to go across and make the contact there, but it was there were a lot of people coming and going, lots of radio channels and chatter. They were all intent on LFB business, so I thought I'd give them a few minutes to get themselves sorted out. I'd find my constables and then I'd go and find out what their priorities would be.
Right.
But as I say, it was quite obvious.
Okay. Do you know whether anybody you spoke to, or did you know whether anybody you were speaking to was the actual incident commander?
At the time, yes.
So the person you spoke to you thought was the incident commander?
Yes.
And did the person you spoke to tell you that they were the incident commander?
I think so.
Right. And that's the tall person with grey hair, is that
Yes.
right? In the command unit?
Yes.
Right. Nobody on the incident ground?
Do you mean outside?
I mean, you're quite right. I mean, outside at the base of the tower.
No one outside the tower said that they were in charge.
Right. Now, you go on in the middle of page 4, and it's a block of text, I'm afraid, but to find it just below halfway down, you say, I could only see one or two people who were walking but coughing. This was worrying, as I should have seen hundreds of people. At this point, my priorities were to save human life both inside and outside the tower. Now, just where were you when you say I could only see one or two people walking but coughing?
I was I don't suppose you've got a map of the site, have you? No.
Yes. I think it's your second exhibit, actually, which we can have up for
that
you.
won't be any use.
Right.
There's another building immediately adjacent to Grenfell Tower called Barrington Walk.
Yes.
There's a narrow strip of concrete between them. It's like a covered way,
Yes.
and I was under there. And I was right next to the glass entrance to the tower,
Yes.
so I could see who was coming out and who wasn't coming out,
Right.
and I could see the fire brigade going in.
Right. I see. And you could see them coming down the stairs through the glass and
Yeah.
coming out of the exit, could
Yes.
you? And you go on to say, at this point my priorities were to save human life both inside and outside the tower. And then you say, to prepare the ground for 20 LFB, 20 LAS, and as many police units as possible. What do you mean by 20 LFB?
My understanding was that once you say it's a major incident, then they come in tranches of 20.
Right, I see. Had anybody told you that 20 more pumps were oncoming at that point?
At that point, I don't think so.
Okay. Did anybody tell you that, in fact, the incident had been escalated to 25 pumps by 131?
No.
Right. Now, going back to this question of appointment of Gold and Silver Command we discussed a moment ago, can I take you back to the CAD, please, and turn to page 10? At 153, just below the top of the page, 153.48, if we can have that highlighted, please. It says SI, command structure, Gold, Superintendent Paul Warwick, and then a little bit down the page, Silver, INSP Thatcher, Bronze TBC. First of all, SI, is that Superintendent?
No, that's it's a function within the control centre.
What is that?
What the acronym stands for, I couldn't tell you, but it comes from SI. It's a role within the command centre.
Do you know what it is?
No.
Right.
Well, that's a lie. If you want something, everyone says send it to SI. It's something that they do. It's a
Right.
way of command and control, but exactly who it is and what they do, no idea.
Do you ever have any training on how the command and control centre actually works?
Formal training? No.
Right. So your knowledge of how it works is based on your day-to-day experience?
Day-to-day experience, and I was a CAD operator when I was a constable. We used to have control rooms in each of the boroughs. So there was one for Hillingdon, there was one for Harrow, there was one for Kensington. Then about, I don't know, 15 years ago, we moved to 3 large call centres at Bow, Lambeth and Hendon. When it was working, when it had a control room on Borough, I worked in there. And I also had a year working for the New Zealand Police in their southern control room, which was slightly different to the way we did it, but the same pressures.
Right. And Warwick has obviously worn it. Can I just ask you, was this about the time, 153.48, was that about the time that your command structure was established to the best of your recollection?
Yeah, that would have been put in as a result of Mr. Warnett contacting them and saying this is the command structure.
Right. Do you know why it wasn't established sooner than that?
There's a big difference between it being established and someone typing that on a computer record.
Right. So how big a difference is it in this case? How long do you think elapsed before 0153.48 when the operator typed this in?
I've no idea. It's difficult to put anything that night into chronological order. I have memories of events, I have memories of taking decisions, but if you were to ask me, put things in a chronological order, it's fractured. It's like a broken jigsaw.
Do you know, or did you know, at that point, prior to or as at 153.48, whether the LFB had declared their own major incident?
No.
Did you know that they hadn't?
No.
You didn't know one way or the other?
No.
Did you
As I say, there's very defined and clear roles. I had my role, I knew what I had to do. I really couldn't worry about what the LFB were doing because my role was significant enough.
Right. Is it not important for joint responder agencies to know whether each other has declared a major incident?
Well, it must be, but in the nature of this event, it was so fast that it's the time you're talking about. We're talking minutes. A lot of the training for the interoperability, the training, it's for things that take, you've got time to sit down and consider and establish control rooms and shared ways of working and sharing and 15 cups of tea, and you've got the time. What you have to understand is time was our enemy. You just had to act. Because if you didn't act, then all was lost. So someone not typing that on the computer screen really didn't have much bearing on it whatsoever. And yes, the fire brigade, if they'd declared it a major incident, I must admit I had assumed it was, because there was a tower block in the sky on fire. So someone telling me that, very interesting, but didn't make any difference to what I had to do, because I had to make sure that they had a safe working environment. I had to make sure that everyone that came out of that building was able to get to hospital and didn't die on the grass. I had to make sure that no one else coming to the building could get through and harm themselves or others going into the building. I had all that to worry about, so whether or not they'd said it's a major incident for us, it's an administrative process as far as I was concerned.
It sounds as if, though, what you're telling us is that although it's an administrative process, it's one that, at least on this night, was one that could be begun in its own vacuum without knowing whether or not the LFB had themselves
Very much so.
declared a major incident.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
But isn't the purpose of GESIP and all these arrangements that you were trained of to get emergency services in London working together so that each knew what the other was doing?
But I knew what the others were doing. I was there. I could see them doing it. You're right, it is all about the cooperation and shared understanding of risks and goals and aims. And work, as you say, it's working together. It sounds cheesy, but it's not. What I experienced on that night was the finest example of teamwork I have ever been involved in. It was, if you think what happened in those short hours between arriving at half a dozen fire engines and 20 coppers, and what we left, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And the time, every time you thought you had a handle on something, it changed. And your priorities changed. Well, priorities didn't change because it was saving human life. But where that human life was changed. So yes, you are quite right. It is important. But I would say that in my experience, having left the GESLIP training, I knew the framework, and I knew that we had to understand what each other needed. We had to understand where each other were. We had to understand how we could support each other. I knew all that, and all that did happen. Yes, the niceties probably are missing, but the niceties weren't important. What was important was something happened, and we had to bloody well move, or people would die. Sorry.
No, that's understandable, and I understand why you've used those terms. But I just want to. What I'm really trying to get at is how GESIP's programme or policy worked in the context of this fire. Can I just ask you to look at MET 000-23290, which is the interoperability framework, which we looked at very briefly at the start of your evidence, and on which you said you had training. And can I ask you to go to page 14 of that? And I'm not going to read it all to you, I'm just going to show you what it looks like on the page. Section 7 is entitled Establishing a Common Operating Picture. A common operating picture, COP, has been defined as a common overview of an incident that is created by assessing and fusing information from multiple sources and is shared between appropriate command, control and coordinating groups to support a joint decision-making. And it goes on, it's a single point of reference for those involved and supports joint decision-making. And the various questions that then get asked. And then under 8, penultimate paragraph before we get to 8, the common operating picture should have a clear relationship with established command, control and coordination groups. And then under 8, arrangements for joint working. Decision-making in incident management follows a general pattern of working out what's going on, situation, establishing what you need to achieve, direction, deciding what to do about it, action, all informed by a statement and understanding of overarching values and purpose. And then under 8.1 on the next page, there is a joint decision model, which is self-explanatory. My question is a single one, a simple one. Unless you knew what LFB was doing vis-a-vis a major incident, and unless they knew what you were doing vis-a-vis a major incident, how could you establish a common operating picture?
Because I could see. I was there. And everything you've just talked us through happened. I knew what was important. I knew what was happening. I knew what they needed of me.
But you didn't know whether or not they declared a major incident.
Well, no, but as I say, no, I didn't.
You say it wouldn't have made a difference, but does it mean, though, that what is intended by this policy wasn't operating as this policy contemplates at that point?
That part of it didn't happen, yes.
Do you remember what your first point of contact with the LFB after the establishment of the gold and silver command structure was?
It would have been prior to the first command meeting.
At 3:20?
Exactly what time, I couldn't tell you.
Right. So, well, okay. So we have a period between 153 when Superintendent Warnett establishes the gold and silver structure, gold, silver, bronze structure, 153, and then your first tactical command meeting, which is at 3:20.
Yes.
So it's an hour and a half. So during that hour and a half period, do you remember what your first contact with the LFB was, or was there none?
Is this after I'd spoken to the gentleman with the grey hair?
On what you told us before this morning, given that you made that contact very shortly after arrival, it follows the answer to that is yes, but I'm asking you.
I don't remember any other contact.
Right. Now, on page 6 of your statement, just a slightly separate point, you describe how you let someone called Michael Perkins through the barrier. You just go to page 6. You can pick this up in your statement. They're about 2/3 of the way down the page. And you've been describing what's been happening at the cordon, and then you say 3/4 of the way, or 2/3 of the way down the page, perhaps is better. 3 other males then went to go past me up Bowmore Road. I stopped one. No, that's not. There you go. Keep going down, keep going down. Yeah. 3 other males. You see that there's a redaction mark. 3 other males then went to go past me up Bowmore Road. I stopped one who I now know to be Michael Perkins. I started to tell him to go back, but he said he had keys for a hall which he wanted to open up for the residents. I thanked him and let him through. He was walking up Bowmore Road away from the tower, and I needed a place of refuge for survivors. I believe it was now that I started to push the message to the constables that they needed to be forceful, but not to start a riot because we would not win. Do you remember roughly what time this was?
This is my first statement, should I say, was chronologically not correct.
Right.
It was memories from the night. I think that was just after one of the meetings. It's on my body worn.
We'll come
The exact time I couldn't tell you.
Right, okay. We'll come to look at the...
I think it was about 3-ish.
Right, okay. And then you go on to say, just a bit lower down, after the sentence which starts on the balance of probability, you can see 3 lines on from there, it says, I think it was now that I found the LFB command unit parked just up Bowmore Road and I made first contact with LFB command. It was a brief conversation about what they needed. Now, I was going to ask you that in the context of talking to Michael Perkins, but given what you told us this morning about making contact in the command unit early on after your arrival, is what you've said there in your statement really correct?
No, that's chronologically it's out. I can remember making contact with Mr. Perkins having just come from the LFB.
Right.
So I had that joined up in my mind. I'd just left an LFB, but obviously I've got which contact wrong, because I'd made contact with the grey-haired gentleman much earlier before I spoke to Mr. Perkins.
So is that sentence then a reference to what you told us this morning about the brief conversation in the command unit with the incident commander, tall chap, grey hair?
Yes.
Right. Now, can we start then by taking you through a number of clips of your body-worn footage? Now, I understand this is obviously going to bring back very clear recollections of the night. Inspector, if you'd like a break at this point, we can take a break.
No, let's just do it, please.
All right, okay. If at any point during this...
Well, you'll know.
Right, okay. Now, can I ask you please to be shown, and this is it's not a very long clip, it's INQ quintuple 0521. And this starts at an adjusted time, I should tell you, of 02:39:10 and runs just for a minute or so to 02:40:20. So it's a short clip.
Yes, indeed. How are you? Yes, so, we've got an idea of what we've got. Seen the fire up here. Yeah. We think it's 27 floors. Looks like it's gone from the third to the top. Cool. Large number of casualties. We don't know the state of the casualties yet. Some of them bring work out. We've got a casualty handling area next door, which is going into the leisure centre. Biggest thing for yourself is going to be identifying the casualties and the people. You're going to be rehoming, stuff like that. Because we've declared it a major incident, we have to do the inner and outer cordons and the traffic cordon. So we're not even close to getting near that yet, I'd say, but at least start thinking about it. Traffic-wise, though, is a priority. I'd say we've probably already got about
we've closed
100.
Yeah, we've closed Clarendon Road.
Yep.
So that's going to be a big
These
deal.
roads don't mean much to me around here, so I'm going to trust you with
all right, it's just over there.
Okay. So, to give you an idea of numbers, we've got 50 fire engines plus about another 40 cars coming, and we'll probably expect another 50 going on top of that. Then you've got all the ambulances, so it's far out to make that traffic cordon.
Yeah.
The other thing was all the people. I don't know if you've had a chance to get rid of the people yet. There was loads of people down the bottom.
Yeah, we pushed all back, we've cleared that balcony, and we've cleared the flats immediately opposite.
That's probably my priorities for you at the moment. Jackie,
See you?
Turn up on Silchester Road. Is there any direct?
Coming. Yeah, I'd say personal safety comes first. Yeah.
Now, the senior officer of the LFB that you were talking to there, is he, we know who he is, but I'll tell you who he is in a minute, but was he the tall chap, grey hair, that you were referring to earlier in your evidence?
Yes.
Was this the first occasion on which you met him?
Yes.
Right. So there was no meeting with this officer immediately prior to arrival?
No.
Okay, now we've got, just to remind you, a time mark of this meeting at 02:39 and 10 seconds, and that runs, the clip runs for a minute and 10 seconds or so. Do you think you had any meeting with any other officers in a command unit prior to that time?
No.
Right, okay. Now that, for you and for the record, is DAC O'Loughlin, Andy O'Loughlin, who was incident commander at that time and was then relieved by Assistant Commissioner Rowe.
I noticed he did actually tell me it was a major incident, but it didn't register.
Right. So that means that you first spoke to the LFB, in this context at least, about an hour after you arrived.
That surprises me, but if that's what it says. In terms of the, yeah, it must be. I went down to find where Kieran and Josh were. Had a brief conversation at the bottom of the tower. They were busy. It could well have been. I mean, time was on fast forward that night.
Yeah.
It could well have been.
Just so you know, first of all, this is an adjusted time because we have to adjust forward an hour in the time clock in the top right-hand corner. But we've also looked at the BWV footage before that, and there isn't any. That's right. There's no discussion in the command unit prior to that. Just so you know. Now, that being so, your first detailed discussion with the LFB about an hour after you arrived. Can you just explain to me why that was? Why you left it until then?
Because we needed to act when we first got there. Upon arrival, there were people edging towards the tower, more people coming towards it. The priorities were going to be clear. It was going to be cordons to keep everyone safe, and then get everything ready for, as I say, for the ambulance service and all the blue light matters. So actually going to see them and having the physical, this is our priorities, we save people first.
Forgive this question, and I detect what I think I know what you're going to say, but would it be normal for you at a major incident to leave it an hour before speaking to the LFB, for example, another emergency service?
Well, this is the first major incident that I've been in this position to deal with, so normal, I have absolutely no idea.
Right.
Would it have been best, if I was planning it, of course I'd have gone there much earlier. But you have to balance that against the priorities of stopping people going into the burning building.
Yes.
And the first officer to arrive, there was a handful of us. So could I justify, not if I made up, say, 10% of the arriving police officers, could I justify not being there and stopping people hurting themselves or getting in the way and harming the fire brigade because I wanted to go and have a chat to tell me something that was obvious?
Did your not going to the command unit for an hour or so after your arrival cause you any difficulties in understanding the priorities and tasks to be carried out by your
No,
men?
it just confirmed.
Right. Now, I'd like to show you, please, what we've called clip 2, which is INQ quintuple 0520, which is also, just to tell you what it is, it's also you in the command unit. If we can just play that, please. I've got a number of questions about what we see. We may have to play it twice. And it runs, just so you know, from 023653 to 023902.
I'm going to listen.
Anyone who says, not just me, anyone who has a message for LFP, they'll call you.
MPS can you make sure they're in earshot of my comms, please, and no visual on the footage of the damage?
I've yet to find a command unit that has access to your pictures. They're having a briefing. Give me 2 seconds, I'll let you know.
Did you tell me they were receiving that? I need you to interrupt that briefing rather urgently. I have people trying to climb out of their windows halfway up the southern aspect. The southern aspect is now starting to be engulfed. At the moment, it's just trying to get...
Half five.
Come on. So it's the end of this road here. GP man, I'd suggest we get a separate working channel for anybody that's been displaced to keep this channel, please, for active fire-related matters. I'll sort that out with control on the phone. You need to get it. Alright, got a message up.
Jones, the helicopter's concerned about the southern aspect. They say it's going up. But yeah, I couldn't see yourselves. But
Have you got helicopter?
the heli is transmitting. I don't know if you guys have got access to it.
Yeah, GP man has from our pictures, unexpected the worst to happen. We are going to be losing flags on the southern aspect very imminently to fire. We've already started to do that on the top floors, on the southeast corner. This is going to spread very quickly, and unfortunately this is going to have a lot more fatalities.
Yes, yes. And with LFB now, they're just trying to get the uplink. They are aware southern aspect is in problems.
Not working.
All right. Helicopter saying the southern aspect starting to come down.
Heli-tele's not working.
Yeah, but verbally the southern aspect's correct. Yeah.
MPS is stating we will be losing tracks in the southern aspect imminently, which will cause further fatalities. It's going to spread rather quickly,
Now,
Right.
okay with that. Just a number of questions. I won't play it to you again unless we have to make my questions more comprehensible. But first of all, who were you talking to on the radio?
I think that was the helicopter operator.
Okay, and was the problem that they knew you couldn't access the heli-tele downlink?
It sounds like they were asking whether the fire brigade could see the downlink.
And you say, we couldn't quite hear it, but let me see if you can recall it, having been prompted with that. You were yet to find a command unit that had access to your pictures.
Yeah.
That's what you were saying, was it?
Yeah, I'd I'd gone to several of the command units trying to identify who was where and what was doing what.
Right. Okay. And how long were you doing that for before this conversation, roughly, do you think?
No, not long.
Right. And did you find out from that there was no command unit that had access to the heli-tele downlink?
Yeah, I believe that command unit that we were just viewing was at that point was the main decision place.
Right. And we can see from that an LFB officer MPS, who we think, I think is Station Manager Johnson, although he's wearing a red T-shirt. We were able to identify him. He said it's not working. Did you take from that the heli-tele downlink wasn't working?
Yes.
Right. We've had some suggestion in the evidence so far that that the messages were being scrambled by the Metropolitan Police, so they weren't actually reaching the command unit. Can you comment on that?
Scrambled.
Well, that's the word that is a word that has been used by LFB.
Right. My understanding, and I'm clearly not a helicopter pilot, is that when we had individual helicopters assigned to police forces and services, they had a way of communicating with each other through standard channels. We moved to the National Police Air Service, or NPAS, a few months ago, a couple of years ago now. So a lot of, I think the Met had 3 helicopters, but they pooled them all together. So if I was, I don't know, at a burglary or something in Notting Hill and I requested a helicopter, it wasn't uncommon for them to say, yes, a helicopter's assigned. Where's it travelling from, please? Devon.
Right.
At which point you say, thank you very much, don't worry, we'll put a dog in. But that's the practicality of it. So we had helicopters coming to us from all over. Because they were from different force areas, they didn't necessarily have the right, I think it's some sort of code they had to put in. So as long as you knew the code, that particular helicopter needed to speak to that particular fire service, everything was fine. If neither one had that particular code, there were problems.
Was that a well-known discrepancy or problem as at June 2017?
The first time I heard of it was after Grenfell Tower.
Right, okay. Let's just pursue this a little bit more. I'm going to show you a reference in the CAD in a moment. Before I do, at that point, during this discussion, did you have any plan to communicate the NPAS helicopter radio messages either to the LFB command unit or to MPS control?
At that point, no, because it was a problem that it looked like people were working on.
Right. I see, okay. But what about the radio messages? Was there a way in which you could harvest the radio messages and get those messages to the LFB command unit?
At that point, it would have been going through the command and control centre. So the police control room, talking to the fire brigade control room and moving around in that direction.
Right, so let me just get the line of communication. Helicopter to Met CC to LFB at Stratford, and then Stratford to the
Yes.
command unit.
At that point, yes.
At that point. Did that chain of communication change during the night, to your knowledge?
Specifically from the helicopter or
Yes.
just in general?
Specifically from the helicopter.
I don't know of anything that was put in place specific from the helicopter, but we did have an awful lot of radio traffic coming from constables, and the precursor to the message was always, is anybody with LFB to pass a message? And again, I come back to this time aspect and making sure that we were moving as quickly as we could, because we were just reacting to what was happening in the tower. So I stationed a constable there with a radio at the command centre, and if someone said anybody with LFB, that officer was there to just speak directly, so they didn't have to go around the houses we've discussed.
Okay, and do you know which officer was that?
Constable Jacobs.
Jacobs. Right. And she was on the incident ground?
Yes.
Do you know who she had direct contact with within the LFB control room?
I couldn't give the person's name, but I stood there and said, you talk to him.
Right, okay, we'll come to that then in a little bit more detail in a moment. Can I take you back to CAD 482, please, and go to page 22?
Just a minute, I'm wondering whether the inspector will have a break quite soon.
I think, Mr. Chairman, now is probably as good a time as any for a short break, if we can afford one.
Can you help me before we break? Are you going to want to show him a lot more body-worn footage?
They're going to show him a little. Yes, there's a lot, some.
Some.
Right, yes.
Yes.
Some more.
Now, the reason I asked that question, Inspector, was because there was a point at which you obviously wanted to get on with these films and see them. But I think, to be honest, it would be in your interest to have a short break now. And I'm afraid there are more of them to look at, but maybe you'll find it easier to look at when you've had a bit of a break.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll have a 10-minute break, resume at 12:15, and go on from there.
I should,
right.
Mr. Chairman, I should just mention for everybody's benefit that one of them we're going to come to in about 10 or 15 minutes after the break requires a trigger warning because it shows the building on fire at the very start of the clip.
Right.
But from some, I say but, it's from some distance, but it nonetheless shows the building on fire. I just say that for your benefit, Inspector, and for the benefit of those in the room and those watching on the live stream, so that they can make arrangements.
All right.
So.
Would you like to go with the usher? She'll look after you. Thank you. Right, 12:15, please. All right, happy to carry on, Inspector.
Yes, thank you, sir. I've just spoken to my wife, who's here for me, and she says I'm becoming argumentative.
Oh, I don't know that I trust her judgment.
If she can see you, sir. If that is the case, I'm sorry. I know this isn't pinning, blame. It's.
No.
I understand the inquiry, but it's just very difficult.
That's right.
If I have become a pain, I'm sorry.
Not at all.
Well, I don't think you have. And can I just ask you, are you comfortable with that fan blowing at you from such...
I have no idea what it is. It was quite nerve-wracking, actually. That's a fan, is it?
Well, yes, it's...
No, it's fine, thanks, sir.
All right, you're comfortable anyway.
Sir.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Chairman. Inspector, thank you for coming back to us. Can I just ask you one or two questions arising out of the exchanges we've had just before we broke? First of all, when a major incident is declared and you are put in our silver command, as we see you were at 153 or thereabouts, does that mean that you are silver command across the board for the whole incident, or just silver command so far as the Metropolitan Police were concerned?
Just the police.
Just the police. And so everything that you were doing in that role was limited, was it, to the police, and there might well be another silver commander for the LFB or for the LAS?
Exactly. There are defined roles at this, any incident. So there will be someone similar to myself working within the LFB, delivering on the ground.
Right. And would that silver person be your point of contact within that emergency service?
If we're talking just in terms of Grenfell Tower, because of the speed and nature of it, everyone got together in the command meetings. So, I'm assuming you're going to be asking me who was that person and did I go to that person through the night. There wasn't an occasion that I needed to go and speak to people because something had changed significantly on the ground. I thought that the command meetings on the hourly basis run by Mr. Rowe were very useful, and they pretty much confirmed what you could see was happening.
Now, we can see from the last clip that you go into the command unit. When did you first realise that there were two command units, not just one?
I can't give you a time, but it was quite early on. I think there were more than two. There were lots. And that was one of the things that made me understand just how bad this was going to get, because you only see a command unit at a significant deployment of the fire brigade, and there were lots of command units.
All right, well, we'll come back to that in a moment. Can I then go back to the question of the heli-tele downlink? Now, in the clip we've just seen, where you're told it's not working, before that, there was another officer with a red T-shirt who comes up to you with a mobile with what looks like a map on it, which looked like it mirrored the map on the main screen. My question is, to your knowledge, was there a mobile app that would, if it was working, carry the heli-tele downlink?
I have no idea. My experience of heli-tele is limited to one previous occasion before that, which was New Year's Eve 2011 into 12, whereby I was working with the command team at the New Year's Eve celebrations in central London, and that's the only time I've ever used it.
Right, but are you aware whether, or do you know whether there is a mobile app on which an officer can... You don't, right. Now, can I ask you to go to CAD 482 at page 22 and look at the time mark of 3:23:36, 4/5 of the way down that page. You can see that it says there, GTASU, FYI, OE21N have two portable downlinks on board and en route to scene for LFB and police to view heli-tele pictures. First of all, do you know anything about that message?
No, in fact, it answers a question. I've always wondered why they turned up. I certainly didn't ask for them. GT is the control room, so it's from GT to ASU, which is the Aerial Support Unit. For your information, OE21 Night is a traffic unit. They have the handsets, and they're making their way to us.
Right. GT, you say control room, that's not Met CC, that was the strategic command, wasn't it?
Yes.
Lambeth.
Yeah, GT is a special operations room, essentially, that gets set up. It's in Lambeth as opposed to Hendon, which is the normal domestic control room.
Right. And you say in your last answer, but one, you said, I always wondered why they turned up. Did they turn up?
Yes, I saw them once.
Did they work?
Yes, yes.
So was there a point in the night when the LFB was able to view heli-tele pictures?
I believe that when it was a Metropolitan Police helicopter they could, but when it wasn't they couldn't. But my involvement with whether they could see the television pictures from the helicopter or not was minimal.
Right, I see. So you yourself have no information to give us about whether you saw this in operation once these portable
I saw it in
downlinks
operation
arrived.
in a police environment, but not in the fire brigade environment.
What was that environment?
Mr. Warnett had the handset, and we were discussing the danger to Baron and Walk and Treadgold House, as the helicopter was saying that the roofs of those two buildings were heating up to a point where they were both likely to catch fire, and that debris is now blowing down onto the roofs.
Did you ever yourself see any heli-tele downlink images?
Only that, and for about 2 seconds.
On what? On what device?
On the portable downlinks, which that message is referring to.
Where do they go, those portable downlinks? Were they on the incident ground? Sorry.
Mr. Warnett had one.
Right.
Where then went, I don't know.
I mean, can you just describe it for us? Is it like a mobile phone, or is it like an iPad? Or
No, it's larger. It's probably about iPad-sized, 2 handles. It's probably not too far from dimensions of this A4 binder.
Right. And first of all, roughly, do you know roughly how long after 3:23 those arrived?
No idea.
Okay. And do you know whether they were shown to the LFB, given to the LFB in a command unit?
No, the first I knew of them was when Mr. Warnett had one.
Right. Do you know why the LFB weren't supplied with these?
No, no idea.
Do you know who might be able to tell us why those were not supplied to the LFB?
No, it's the first I hear they didn't have one. It's the first I really know that going from your line of question, I'm guessing that they didn't get to see the pictures at all through the night. This is the first I've heard. I knew there was problems, but I had no interaction with these things at all in that 2 second period.
You saw a couple of seconds worth on Superintendent Warnett's portable downlink. Is there any reason you didn't say to him, well, that's very helpful, the command unit needs one, let's take it there?
It wasn't that helpful. It was helpful in terms of seeing the roofs of the adjacent buildings, but we were there, we could see everything. There was no, you could see hot debris was blowing because you were there. You could see people at the windows because you were there. You could see everything that the helicopter could tell us, we could see because we were there. The main benefit to the helicopter was the fact that it could show exactly, not exactly, but give you an indication how hot the adjacent buildings' roofs were getting. But I think in one of the previous clips, the helicopter said that the southern aspect is starting to crumble. But we know because it's there.
Given the fact that you were told by the MPS helicopter pilot that the images weren't getting through, and you were told by the LFB officer in their T-shirt that they weren't being received in the command unit, why didn't you suggest to Superintendent Warnett that the portable downlink he was holding be run round to the command unit so that those in the command unit could have access to the heli-tele downlink images?
Because at that time I didn't know they didn't.
Right.
So I knew there were problems early on, but I didn't know that that was the case.
But equally you didn't have any reason to think that the problems had been solved?
No, but you have to trust your colleagues.
Did anybody tell you that the heli-tele downlink problems had been solved so that you didn't have to send the portables round to the command unit?
No, but in terms of Grenfell Tower, worrying about a heli-tele image was down on my list of priorities.
Now, can I ask you to go to page 6 of your first witness statement, please? And you say in that, on that page, 4 lines up from the bottom, and you're discussing your conversation we've already seen the clip of, you say, I explain what our situation was, and we would be able to clear the area once more resources arrived. He accepted this. Now, I just want to show you a short clip and ask you whether the discussion you're referring to in your statement here is captured in this clip. It's INQ 516, which runs from an adjusted time of 02:45:10 to 02:45:35, so it's very short. And it's what we have as clip 4.
We haven't got
with LFB campaign.
What would really help me as an absolute priority having walked in is that can we please call on some extra resources.
We've called the world. They will arrive.
Absolutely,
Okay. I know. Yeah. Your guy's going to go to Bramley Road. Ours going to Clarendon Road.
Yeah.
As they come in, we're pushing it out.
Because I can already see that people are
put
themselves in danger.
Yeah. I've been here since it started. I know.
Is that the discussion?
I think so, but that first statement was, as I said, the memories were not chronologically correct. They were fractured. It all just came out, really. And it took me several days to write it. Can you just show me the statement again, please?
The statement again? Or the
yes,
clipping?
please. No, I can remember that. That conversation with Mr. Rowe came after the conversation with the grey-haired gentleman, but before the first command meeting.
Yes.
Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
Brilliant.
And it's your evidence, I think.
Oh, yeah, but...
All right. I can show you a statement again. Page 6, 4 lines up from the of the page. Is that? Do we put these two together?
I think so.
Okay. Now, we then move on in your statement. We stick with this. You say, and it's highlighted, I pulled PC 428 from the nearest cordon and tasked her as the conduit between police and LFB. Is that Alice Jacobs?
Yes.
Right. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about her role shortly, but before I do so, can I just ask you this? Either on arrival or during the incident, did you expect to communicate personally with the LFB?
Well, at some point, yes.
Yes. Now, you didn't have any formal shared communication channels in the first few hours.
No.
And you say that in your third statement at page 9. I don't need to take you back to it, but you do say that you told LFB commanders which airwave channel you were using.
Yes.
Did you have any discussion with any of the commanders about setting up a shared communication channel with them?
Not at that time. I can remember that conversation. It was the gentleman in the red T-shirt.
Right. The one on the right?
I'll take your word for that.
Right.
Well,
no,
a few
I'm
red
asking
T-shirts
you. I mean, there were. Which one was it? Do you remember?
Well, it would have been the gentleman that I told, we're on the radio. In fact, I showed him my radio. He was wearing a red T-shirt.
Right. Right. Okay.
That control room was hectic. There are a number of, at least 2 or 3 radio channels going on. It wouldn't have made sense to add another radio channel in there to get another member of the LFB to listen to our conversations.
So, did you establish a shared channel at any stage?
Not in the early hours, no.
When did you establish a shared channel?
That would have been done through the command and control complex.
Right. Do you know when that was?
No.
Okay. Do you think it would have assisted your role if you had had a shared communication channel at an early stage in the incident?
It's a very difficult question to answer because it's in the abstract, isn't it? I honestly don't know. If you were planning this event, you would probably have planned to have the shared control room capacity. But in terms of turning up to an event that then escalated from minute to minute, at what point you would think we definitely need a shared control room now? I don't know when that point would be. because that was the real difficulty around this fire, was it just escalated and escalated and got worse and worse.
Now, PC Rees, who's given us a statement, says that he told members of the public that there was a dedicated line set up on 999 for people to ring and say that they were in Grenfell Tower. That's what he said, and I paraphrase it. Does that accord with your recollection?
That PC Rees said that, or that there was a line?
That there was a line.
I have no idea.
No idea, okay. Did you, or did the MPS, have a dedicated 999 line for Grenfell at any stage?
I don't think you can dedicate a 999 line.
Okay. Do you know whether the officers in general on the ground at the incident ground were told that there is a dedicated 999 line for Grenfell Tower?
Not by me, and I don't remember the control room saying that.
Right. Now I want to ask you one or two questions about PC Jacobs's role. You asked her, as we've seen in your statement, it's still on the screen, to act as the conduit between the police and the LFB. Did you, and we've seen some of the discussions you had with the LFB, but did you ever receive a briefing from the LFB about what kind of information should be collected and passed on to them regarding fire survival guidance?
No.
Or conditions in the building or in
No.
flats? So no briefing?
No.
Right. Were you aware that there were were you aware that there was a command unit specifically designated to deal with fire survival guidance calls?
Not immediately, but through the night, yes.
When did you come to learn that?
Probably about halfway.
Halfway. Do you think
because initially when I spoke to PC Jacobs, she was at a command unit, and then when I went to check on her later on, she was at a different one, and that's when I understood that was the role that was happening at that location.
Was this before or after your first meeting, first conversation with Assistant Commissioner Rowe?
After, I think.
After. Was it before or after your first tactical command meeting?
Before, I think.
Right. And we know that that started at 3:20 or so. Okay. So you learnt that there was a designated command unit between about 2:40 or 2:50, I suppose, and 3:20 within that half an hour period.
It sounds like it. But no one said,
okay,
this is the dedicated command unit for fire safety guidance. It was a case of seeing what's going on and working out for myself.
Right. Did you actually need to have a separate liaison officer to communicate with command and control, or between the MPS and the FSG command unit?
Are you asking, was there a role for PC Jacobs to
Yes,
perform?
was there an operational requirement to have a liaison officer?
Yeah, there was, traffic was building up on the air around, I said the precursor is any officer with LFB. We had, before PC Jacobs was put there was no one that was specifically with the fire service. So it made sense to put someone there to answer those calls.
Right. And that was your idea, was it?
Yes.
And in the role that you asked her to assume, what did you think she would have to do?
I thought it would have been the more logistical aspects of the work, in terms of they needed police officers at a particular location because the cordons were thin, or people had got through, or we needed to tell the fire brigade. They say more the management rather than the fire survival guidance it turned into.
When you tasked her, did you think that you were tasking her to pass on FSG messages from residents at the cordon to the command unit?
No, that just evolved through the night. In many ways, I'm glad that she was there, because that work could be done.
Did you ever specifically task any officer with gathering FSG information from people gathered at the cordon and then passing them on to the command unit?
By the time that had started, I realised that was what was happening.
Yes.
They were already doing the job.
Now, on page 9 of your third witness statement, if I can ask you to go to that, please. That's MET 000232884. You describe your decision to station PC Jacobs with LFB command, and you say, in the second sentence, I did not know of any formal shared communication channels that were operational in those first hours. And then you go on to say, 4 lines down, the police channels were busy with officers trying to pass messages to LFB. This could be done via METCC passing electronic messages to the LFB control room. This would, however, take time. Now, first of all, what type of messages were being passed that you're describing there?
I can't tell you specifically. It's when you're in the moment, not just at Grenfell Tower, but at anything really. You understand that, well, you're listening to the radio, but there's normally other things going on as well, and it just comes with experience. And I could just hear anyone with LFB, and that precursor saying that there's a blockage somewhere, a blockage, that we needed to get information to people. Exactly what the nature was, I couldn't tell you, because something clicked in my mind that we need to do something to actually get this through. And that's why I asked PC Jacobs to go and fulfill that role.
Right. Well, let me just show you CAD 482 again, and a few pages in that, just to pick up some of the messages at certain times and see where we go with that. If you go to page 9 of CAD 482, MET 0002324, 23294. Page 9, you can see first of all on that page 142.57 BS op 142.57 BS op 142.57 BS op. We are getting numerous calls in FC from people inside Grenfell Tower saying they are trapped. Was that the sort of message that you're referring to in your statement on page 9, your third statement?
No, that's communication between the people in the. This wouldn't have been. I doubt this would have been put out over the airwaves. These are people within the control room talking to each other.
Right.
So BS refers to the channel manager when it was the domestic channel we were using. BS from operator. So operator is going to be the call receipt side of the room. So they're the people that are actually talking to people on the telephones.
Right. And that message would have gone out to all officers?
No, it probably didn't go. They're just telling the telephone operators are telling the channel operators they're getting telephone calls.
I see. What would the channel operators do with those messages?
What in?
Let me ask the question.
How would the information be passed to the LFB? Is that what you're trying to say?
Let me ask the question a different way. The channel operator receives that from the telephone operator and puts it on the log. I think that's what you're saying. In your experience, would the channel operator at METCC then pass that information on, first of all, to anybody else within the Met at the incident ground?
But each telephone call would have generated another CAD message, and that individual message could be passed. I would expect it to be passed electronically to the fire brigade.
You say you would have expected it. Let's look at another example, that's perhaps slightly more pertinent. Page 11 of the CAD 482, a time mark of 020725, BS, flats from 115 are trapped. Floor on fire, unable to get out for info. So what would happen to that message?
Again, that hasn't come from the call, so that would have been. Again, I'm thinking, it's just my take on it, that this is information that's come from a call handler who's created a separate CAD, but they're informing the channel controller that there are people trapped.
And would that message in some way go to the LFB? at the incident ground.
That message would have had a separate CAD, and that could have been passed electronically, I believe.
Right, now how would it have been passed to the incident ground?
There's a mechanism, but I've never worked in that environment, so I couldn't tell exactly how it happens.
Right. Using that as an example, and there are plenty of others we can see in the CAD, but using that as an example and going back to your third witness statement at page 9, when you refer to METCC passing electronic messages to the LFB control room, are you referring to these kinds of messages that I've just shown you in the CAD?
Can I... Sorry, all the jumping around is a little bit disconcerting.
Yes.
Can you show me that statement again, please?
Yeah, yes, sure. If you go to your third witness statement, perhaps we can have both on the screen at the same time, Ralph. You can keep CAD 482 on the screen, and then have MET 0002328 page 9, which is your third statement, also on the screen. We can compare. So, highlighting if we can, where you say the police channels, this is 5 lines down in your statement, the police channels were busy with officers trying to pass messages to LFB. This could be done via METCC passing electronic messages to the LFB control room. My question is really what messages, and are the messages that are passed to the LFB control room messages such as we see as highlighted in the CAD on the left-hand side of the screen?
Yes.
And my question, I think I've asked it, I'll ask it once more. What is the mechanism whereby that kind of message, the 20725, gets passed to the LFB control room?
It's the CAD system.
It's the CAD system. How do the two link? How does the CAD system link to the LFB system?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you know what, well, when you say you posted PC Jacobs, as you do in the next line, with the LFB to act as a conduit in real time to speed up the process and reduce ambiguity, what did you task her to do?
To be at the command unit, and when someone says anyone with LFB, if they're passing whatever that information could be, to speak directly to the LFB.
And where would she get that information from?
From the officer that's on the radio.
Right, in the METCC control room?
No, on the, well, whoever, but yeah, it would normally have been, from my memory, people on the ground.
Right. Now, there are later messages, so I don't want to get embroiled in a time point, but assuming for the moment that this kind of message, 20725, was a message that you tasked Alice Jacobs to pass on to the LFB, how would she have got that information from the control room, from the METCC control room? Would it come over her radio?
They wouldn't necessarily have told her. They would have contacted them through their channels. So there would have been two channels.
Right.
As I think we're getting at.
Yes.
Is that the control room has where the control room communicates, but there was also PC Jacobs on the ground.
Right. Now you say also PC Jacobs on the ground. She had a radio on. Who was giving her messages over that radio that you expected her to pass on into the command unit? Colleagues
on the cordons.
Colleagues at the cordons. So at the incident ground itself?
Yes.
I see. What about the METCC control room?
They monitor it all. They're not completely divorced from this process. The CAD controller is listening to everything that goes on the channel. Would the CAD controller also radio Alice Jacobs and pass on messages such as this? I don't know if that happened. Right. So as far as you were concerned, when you tasked Alice Jacobs, it was to essentially take radio messages from colleagues at the cordon who were getting them from members of the public and then pass them into the command unit. When I tasked her, it was for the logistical side of things. Right. This developed through the night. This is what it became. Right. Now, before you tasked PC Jacobs, and we had a time for that of 02:54, which is after your first meeting with Andy Rowe. How were these messages getting to the LFB, do you know, before you tasked her? It would have been straight through the control room. Right. But you have to remember that police units were arriving throughout this time, so in the early stages there was less volume because there were less of us. Right. The more officers arrived, the more the volume increased. I understand that. Now you say in your last answer but one, it would have been straight through the control room. Again, what was the mechanism whereby
police at the cordon would be able to speak to the LFB control room?
That would have been communicating with the channel operator, as we've discussed,
Right.
who would then pass it through the system.
I see. So it was done control room to control room, was
Yeah.
it? I see. And you could, I think you could help us further about how that mechanism worked, because you told us before you couldn't. Okay. And do you know of any recording system within the Met that you're aware of that would show how these messages were passed to the LFB?
No, I don't know.
Right. Did you task her specifically to... Sorry, when you did task Alice Jacobs, did you task her specifically to pass on any FSG messages she got?
When I first tasked her, it was for anything.
Right. And who was she to talk to? She got a message from the cordon about a family or person trapped. Who did you task her to speak to?
When I first put her there,
Yeah.
it was, this is the control room, just knock on the door and speak to someone in there. I didn't say, this is your contact, his name's Bill, or whatever. It was a matter, you are here, that's the control room. What she did with that information would depend upon the nature, I'm guessing. If it was as important as there's someone trapped in a particular flat, then obviously she would speak to someone who's dealing in that part of their business. If it's a matter of the fire brigade needs some more water, it would be someone else, I'm guessing.
Right. And did you intend, when you first tasked her, that she was going to be the sole point of contact for the MPS messages to go to the LFB, or did you intend her to be supplemented?
I thought she was supplemented to the control system.
Right. So did you start off, when you first tasked her, you would eventually supplement her, or did you intend her to be carrying out that role on her own?
Oh, I see. Sorry, it's difficult to follow the line of your question.
Let me put the question again. It wasn't very well put. When you first instructed Alice Jacobs to take on the role of acting as a conduit, did you intend at that stage that she would be acting alone, or did you intend at that stage that she would be helped?
Okay. Well, at the time I put her there, and with the nature of the message that I thought they were, I was going to leave her on her own. By the time I realised it had become the fire survival guidance, she had already been joined by Constable Neve.
Yes, okay. And we'll come back to him shortly. Now, I'm going to show you some body-worn footage, if I can. It's about 3 minutes of that. I'll give the number. It's INQ quintuple 0525, but I need to repeat the trigger warning I gave before the break, in case anybody didn't hear it or forgotten about it. It does have, at the beginning, images of the building on fire at a distance. It doesn't last very long, but I think it's right to tell people so that they can make arrangements either to leave this room or to get away from the live stream if they're there. So should we just wait a few seconds to
a short time.
allow people to do that? Inspector, are you happy to view this?
Not really, but...
No, all right. Well, we'll do our best and see how we go. If you need a break at any point during this footage, then we can take a break. Right? Can we play? What I'm going to just say before I play it, I'll just tell you what I'm going to. I'm going to be asking you questions about Alice Jacobs' role and instruction, and also the involvement of Nick Layton at the RBKC. So look out for that. Can we play that, please?
Just received Bravo 01 still with LSB, if you
I just left. Well, what do you need?
We've got a point of contact with them direct.
GTM, S13.
Alice? Alice?
And that's on 3, stand by. Anyone with LSB, anyone with LSB, student river?
MP, you will have PC 528 Bravo Sierra.
620.
Now, you with me now?
528 Bravo Sierra.
Listen to you, lady. You on panel there?
Yeah.
She's with me now. She will be stationed at the LFB command post for the entirety. That's the LFB command post.
Yeah.
When MP needs something, they will ask her.
Flat 83 has been checked.
Right. Make sure it's asking there. Other way to do it. If flat 83 has been checked, there's a blind person in there, okay?
Message to HD with we've got live mail in flat 83 still at the location of River.
Yeah, we're there now. Stand by.
All the
clear, we've managed to get any contact.
I haven't got a clue. Let me find out about that. Because if they're holding, we need one forward. Just follow
Is your CU on the radio in contact with this one?
There's only two of us, so no, we're being channeled to the
back to the local authority.
And your CU...
We're supposed to be assisting with it.
We'll try and get a map.
Brilliant, thank you.
Please, this PC will be stationary. If you need to get a message to us, if you speak to her. First message back from Hennico, flat 83. Has that been cleared? Because there's a blind man in there.
The other quarantine one is dealing with the FSD.
Right.
Go around and teach you that they've got it all written up in there.
All right.
Or give me 2 seconds.
But you stay here, don't move from here, okay? This is Nick. He's from the RBKC, 8383. He's from the local authority. He's managing the care centres where we're going to put people, yeah? So if you need to get any messages to Nick, we'll give you a shout, and vice versa. So you're basically a big phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
Doing good.
So you're going to call, I'm going to listen.
Anyone who says, no, it's me, anyone who has a message for LFB, they'll call you, and all you got to do is speak.
Just a message for LFB?
Yep, it'll just come through you, and that way. If anyone wants anything for RBKC, you speak to Nick. All right?
Yeah, so I need to get another,
all right, you sure?
Get another battery.
Okay.
No,
no, don't worry, I will bully someone. Keep smiling.
Do you want a couple of moments?
No, it's fine.
Yeah? Okay. Right. Now, first of all, is what we've just seen your briefing of Alice Jacobs?
Yes.
Right. So we can put a time mark on that of 02:54:25 through to 02:54:59 or so. When you tasked her, as we've seen, to pass information to Nick at the RBKC, first of all, you'd already met him, had you, at that point?
Been introduced, yeah.
Yeah. And you knew he was the LALE, the Local Authority Liaison Officer. Okay. What did you anticipate she would do in that respect, liaison with him?
If he had been able to set up rescue centres, or respite centres I should say, or if they need anything from the police in terms of problems at the respite centres, right, then he could speak to her and then she could get directly in touch with me.
Now we've heard you stationing her at the command unit.
Yes.
You said that. Do you know where Nick Layton was stationed?
He spent most of his time there as well.
Okay. So they had an easy liaison, as
Should
far
have been,
as you
yeah.
know.
Well, that's where Alice was initially put.
Right.
The LFB then, obviously when events have taken the turn that they did in terms of the fire survival guidance, she was then moved around by LFB to the other command unit, as I said, further down the road.
Right, but that was my next question. Do you know what time that was, or what point that was?
No, I checked back with her 3 or 4 times through the night.
Did she tell you that she'd been moved by the LFB to the other command unit, CU7?
I can't remember.
Right. Now, when you were pointing to the window and asking her to communicate with the messages going that way, was that you instructing her to pass messages which were coming from the officers at the cordon to the LFB?
Anyone, yeah. If anyone needed to get the message through and they were communicating directly.
Right. Okay. Now, did you communicate to other Met officers that PC Jacobs was to act as the conduit between the police and the LFB?
I told the control room of the main channel that she was there, and everyone was listening to that one channel.
I see. Right. Now, on page 9 of your third statement, if we can just go back to that, we were on it a moment ago, you say 6 or 7, I think it is, lines up from the bottom of the page. PC Jacobs was only a few weeks into the job, and I was trying to keep her away from the front line, i.e. the more challenging cordons. I expected her to be required to receive LFB requests for police assistance and then pass them on, and vice versa. In fact, this became a more significant role because of the way in which the incident developed. When that became apparent, she was joined by a more experienced officer, PC Neve. Now, at the point at which you first deployed her or instructed her, Did you ever have any experience of your own of assigning somebody to this role?
No.
Did you think she had the sufficient experience to carry out the role you were initially giving her?
Yes.
Did you monitor or supervise her when she was carrying out the role that you'd initially given her?
I went back and made sure that she was... yes, I went back to her. In terms of was I able to listen to her specifically on the radio, I don't remember listening out for her, but then in the context of the night that would have been next to impossible anyway.
Now, in your first witness statement, just to take you back to that, at page 6, you say at the very bottom of the page, second line up, I did think that this would have been a logistical role, however it evolved into a critical role as she guided LFB to trap residents. At what point did you first discover that she was undertaking a critical role, guiding LFB to trap residents?
When I found out that she'd moved to the other command centre and PC Neve was with her, that's when it hit me that that's what she was doing.
Right. And how long do you think, after first instructing her at 2:54 or so, did she move to the other command unit?
I don't know. I'd be guessing.
Was it before your first tactical command meeting, do you think?
I'd be guessing. I don't know.
Okay. Well, don't guess. You don't. Was it light?
Beg pardon?
Was it getting light?
No, it was still dark.
It was still dark. How did you discover that she was guiding LFB to trap residents, as you say?
Because I went down and spoke to, it was PC Neve actually,
okay,
and asked what was happening.
And did you tell the LFB that she was the PC who had FSG information from the cordon?
At one of the command meetings, I did tell the command group that there was a constable stationed in that role, but I didn't say it was her name.
Right. Before that, because the first one is at 3:20 or so, before that, did you tell the LFB that there was a Met officer acting as a conduit between the cordon and the command unit?
Well, other than speaking to them when I did it, as
yes.
you saw. No, just that once when I spoke to the command unit personnel and said she's here.
And we saw that on the clip.
Yeah.
But you didn't do anything else, is that right?
I'm
not being critical, I just want to know.
No, I understand. I'm just trying to think, could I have done anything else? And short of standing there and saying she's here to talk to you.
Okay, right. Now, I don't know whether you could see this, but we may need to go back to it. In the clip we've seen that when you try to pass on information relating to flat 83, you're told by the LFB officer in that command unit that the other command unit is the one dealing with FSG. Do you remember that from the clip, or do I need to show you that again?
I remember him speaking. Well, if that's what he said, that's what he said.
Right. At that stage, did you hear him say, or did you understand him to say that in fact there was another command unit dealing with fire survival guidance?
I can't honestly say I would have understood what the acronym FSG would have stood for.
Right. Well, perhaps we should just look at that clip. If we can start that clip at 02:54 exactly and stop it at 02:54 and 15 seconds. Just look at 15 seconds of it. See if we can get that. It'll be early on. So if we start at 02:54 exactly. Can we play that?
Just ask in there, how do we do it? If flat 83 has been checked, there's a blind person in there, okay?
Yes, sir.
I can't get there.
We've got live mail flat 83 still at the location of the other.
Yeah, we're there now, stand by.
Down to the FSG unit.
All the
we managed to get any
from there. I haven't got a clue. Let me find out about that. Because if they're holding, we need one pool and just follow them.
You guys with me? Is that right? Is your CU on the way down in contact with this one?
There's only two of us, so no, we're going to channel 10 of those guys.
Right. Did you pick up from that the officer at the window there was saying there was another FSG unit?
This head here.
The chap in the window inside the command unit.
Yeah, I heard that now. But whether I heard it on the night, I couldn't.
That's my right. Were you aware on the night that the officer inside the command unit was pointing out that there was another FSG, there was another command unit handling FSG calls?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Why did you station PC Jacobs at this command unit?
Because that was the main command place that the incident commander was at.
Okay. Did you become aware? Let me put it this way: Did PC Jacobs tell you that in fact there was another command unit carrying out a discrete role in relation to fire survival guidance calls?
At that point.
After this.
The only time I realised that's what was happening was when I went down and spoke to PC Neve, who was with her at the time.
Yeah, okay.
There was no separate briefing that said, this is the command unit for fire survival.
Did you ask for PC Neve to assist PC Jacobs? Or did
No, he had taken it upon himself.
Right. Now, do you know what time he joined PC Jacobs?
No.
We've got that we have from her body-worn footage that it was about 3:30 or so. Would that accord with your recollection?
Yep. I don't know.
You don't
so
know. Okay, you don't
my
know.
recollection is I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm not
Right.
much used to, I'm afraid.
Now, Mr. Chairman, that's a convenient moment, and it is also a minute or so past 1 o'clock. It is.
Yes. Well, we'll have a break now for some lunch, Inspector. Please don't talk to anyone about your evidence while you're out of the room. We'll resume at 2:05, please. All right? Would you like to go with the usher? Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for my guidance, Mr. Millett, how are you getting on?
I will be, I think, another hour or so with this witness. But the following witness, Commander Jerome, will be shorter. But it'll be a well-filled afternoon.
I don't think anyone expected anything else.
No.
Thank you very much indeed. 2:05, please.